Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. Um, so I want to go over some items today about the broadcast. But before we get into this, I want to review some of the principles we've been going over the past few weeks about the protocol that we're using now to keep up consciousness in alignment, in peace, in hope, and in serenity. I have to ask you before not to follow conspiracy theory, not allowing the fear, and some of it is medical stuff that people are passing around in mass media. Do not let yourself, anything that's generating fear in you, you need to walk away from, including people. I've had students, people who have been to WISAC with me, people who have participated in WISAC, that I had to block on certain platform on mass media. Because it's one thing that somebody puts a post sometime that reflects some sort of conspiracy theory stuff. But when you're putting 3 or 4 of them per day, something tells me that there's something wrong. You have been brainwashed or completely the behavior is cult-like. And so I make it a point when I begin to notice that people whose character I would have vouched for earlier have changed so dramatically. I witness them for a little bit, and when I see how far they have gone, I block them, because every time I open my feed, I see the post, and they keep coming in, and they're more polarizing and more sometimes violent rhetorics. Enough. I don't watch the news. I look at stuff on YouTube. I look at the main headline. Because I want to remain in neutrality, and I want to broadcast, because everything that's trying to separate us, to the us against them, is a lie. Because the things that these forces, these principalities in high places, and we're going to get into that in a second, the things that they are all trying to stop us from doing is to stop us from discovering the truth, that there is no separation, that we are all one, and we have more in common than we have things that separates us. Therefore, I want us to feed our consciousness things that are positive and are loving. I told you I'm watching a lot of animal videos, cross-species, adoptions, love, care. I watch a lot of things that are not about conspiracy, and I'm not watching any horror film, any war movies, none of that stuff. I'm not watching it. I want to maintain, and I'm maintaining myself. I'm isolating myself, almost like I'm in a retreat, because I know these forces are after my consciousness. They're looking for a back door to enter. All right, let's go now over who these forces, these beings are, and what they are trying to achieve. It is unfortunate that humanity do not believe in angels, and for that matter, fallen beings. And it's to our detriment, because if we at least believe that they existed, we would be better prepared for the onslaught that we're going through now. All we know is that the world is changing so dramatically, and that the people that we loved and we care for are turning into crazy monsters, and that we don't recognize who they are. And there's a reason for this. It's because they are being agitated by a puppet master. And there are 3 of them that are the main ones that are doing this agitation. The first is the Archon. And the Archons are called also the Watchers. And in the book of Enoch, and also the Genesis chapter 6, they talked about them as being the beings who were initially guardian angels for humanity, and were there to watch over them and protect them, who then, there were 200 chiefs and their followers. Each chief had a choir behind them. So there were more than 200, but it was a discrete number. It wasn't, you know, one third of the heaven. It was a discrete number. And so they were in Mount Hermon, and they were watching over humanity, and they discovered that they became attracted to the fairness and the beauty of human female. And it is right after humanity got out of the Garden of Eden. And therefore, they decided at that moment that they made a pact between them that they were gonna take human form, human visage, and have physical relation with women. And thus they diluted to their offspring, the offsprings of that coupling, they diluted the genetic destiny that God had for us. Because up to that point, human beings were living to be 900 to 1,000 years old. And right after that, humanity's life expectancy dropped dramatically because they altered our DNA structure. Now, their sins was not just the fact that they coupled with humanity, with human female, but they also brought forbidden knowledge. Now you have to understand that humanity as a being human after the Garden of Eden, which was a fifth dimensional place, and freshly being human out of the garden, there are certain things and certain concepts that we could not understand or had the emotional intelligence to process correctly. For example, the concept of killing somebody with physical weaponry. One of the angels brought that, the fallen angel brought that knowledge to human beings. The concept of sorcery and magic. There's a whole bunch of things that they brought that were forbidden knowledge because it's not that we would not evolve into knowing and understanding how to master these things. But at the time, we didn't have the emotional intelligence and the capacity to process these things correctly. And so the other thing also is that it's about beautification of the human female, like makeup and stuff of that nature. And again, at the time, humanity was not prepared for that kind of thing. Women, female, there was a trap that it created for female to become connected to this, to the power on their own sexual, their ability to seduce. Right? Anyway, I'm digressing. So, what these forces, what and then ensued is that because of these sins, God, the offsprings were of three kinds. There was the Nephilims, which were the 10-foot giants, who had appetites like there's no tomorrow. They would devour everything and even eating their own. They were ravenous. Then there is the men of renown. They are not the same. If you look at Genesis chapter 6, said the Nephilim, the men of renown, the mighty men. They are not the same. Each one of them is a different class of being. The men of renown are actually immortal beings that inherited the physical immortality of the angel, meaning that they, because of the genetic mix, they inherited from the angelic realm. If you cut their head, they're going to die physically, but they cannot die without a blow or explosion or something like that. They will not die. People of that nature have to fake their death from civilization to civilization, and they end up being the gods of ancient time to a lot of people because they survive, they last forever. The third kind is what they call the mighty men, people like Hercules or Samson that are able to last and remain for a very long time. Meaning, that have strength, incredible strength, the strength of 1,000 men, that have incredible powers, like Samson in the Bible had this kind of strength, okay? So these are the three classes of being that these archon created. And in order for I want to talk for a moment about how the archon attacks us, because that's the whole point of talking about them. I've done other classes on them and I've gone into great detail, but I want to do a short summary to present to you the exact information on how they attack. The archons do not attack frontally. They are camouflage. In the Gnostic Bible, they call the archons an incomplete being. In dreams, for example, if you meet an archon in a dream, you might feel like you're in an environment that looks like your home or somebody you're familiar with and that you know, a friend, and all of a sudden you look around you or you look at the person and you're like, wait a minute, I'm not safe here. Something is wrong. I have to get out. I'm in danger. This is what happened with simulacrum. The simulacrum is something that looks like the real thing, but is missing something. And that usually triggers us who are experiencing it, that something is wrong, that there is danger. Okay? So the archons create influence us emotionally because they cannot create any emotion. They do not create anything. They can create emotion. But if you, for example, have a pet peeve about a political issue, or let's say children's safety or social security or women's rights or whatever it is that you have, they will find a way to penetrate through that pet peeve and show you an injustice related to it so that they can inflate your emotion 250% and cause you to unravel. Every day I'm walking down the street. There's not one time when I go out that I don't see somebody, sometimes they are well-dressed going to work, that is either on the phone or by themselves screaming from the top of their lungs. And I can tell immediately they are being influenced by the alcohol. And I have to walk away. I have to change side of the street. I have to walk away. Because, and the insidious part of the alcohol, do not underestimate them. The insidious part of them is that when we emotionally think it's our feeling, because the genesis of the feeling is ours, but how it lays out, how it gets inflated, it's not ours. And it takes somebody with a refined consciousness, and this is what we're doing when we're doing, after your reversal breath, we go into a call and we listen to a call. It's the idea of listening and allow our consciousness to examine what is that call trying to tell me today. And if you're feeling emotional agitation that seems exaggerated, that seems to be out of character for you, you should pay attention to it and ask yourself, is this coming from me? Is it 100% mine? In a lot of cases, it will not be 100% yours. And if it is not 100% yours, therefore, you should begin to think about what percentage of this belongs to me. Now, the part that belongs to you, you own, and you need to close that back door. But the 80%, the 75%, you can call Archangel Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael together, because that's what God had done at the time, to imprison them and lock them up so that they no longer can influence you. So the first collective, the archons, or the watchers, they attack in camouflage. You don't know that they are there because they appear, the way they influence us, they make us feel emotionally that it's all thought. And I know, I mean, and by the way, if you have a back door that's open, they could attack you, and you ask the three archangels to come in and remove them, and you close that back door, they will find another back door because they're trying to change, to veer us off, particularly for us. You're more powerful than you think you are. You're a lot stronger than you think you are. And all they're trying to do is try to derail us And because if we are so energetically so big, if you're broadcasting fear and disempowerment, that fear will influence a lot more people. But if you're broadcasting hope, if you're broadcasting acceptance, if you're broadcasting compassion and mercy, it will influence a lot of people into alignment and reconciliation. And they don't want that to happen. The second collective that I want to talk about tonight is Satan. Satan, in the book of Job, I don't want you to think of Satan as a being with the horns, pitchfork, and a tail. It's not what it is. It's a vast and immense energy system, as big and as wide as the entire universe. And it has one purpose and one purpose only: to help us to be the resistance that's going to help us remove our original brain shame, to help us feel that we are deserving of the ease and the flow that God wants to give us. Okay? So this is where we are. So it's important for us to understand that in the book of Job, the book opens up, the first chapter opens up where there's a meeting in the heaven with all the choirs of angels, and then an angel walks in with Satan. And God asks Satan, what have you been up to? And they're having, like colleagues, casual conversation. And he responded, I've been to and fro, here and there, and all that. And then God was praising his servant Job and how righteous Job is. And Satan said, has he been tested? And God said, no. And he said, well, shall I test him? And God said, well, you can test him. Do not take his life, but you can test him. I'm confident he's going to be all right. And so what happened? Frontal attack. Satan do not attack with camouflage. It doesn't attack by hiding its head. You will know you're under attack, and it was going to be frontal. Job lost everything: his wife, his family, his children, his house. He became destitute on the street. He suffered all kinds of misery. And all throughout, and that was the test, not once did he curse God, reject God, or scream at God for not helping him. He kept saying that if this is going this way, it must be your will. And I will obey and I will subside. I praise you. I love you. And this is what he kept saying throughout. And as this happened, he passed the test. And because he passed the test, God gave him much more than he had before in the end. I think he had 3 sons, or 2 sons and a daughter, and he lost them because of this. And again, it's frontal attack. And by the way, Satan is the dweller on the threshold. And there is not one spiritual being that's trying to ascend and elevate, not one initiate, not one adept, that will not face the dweller on the threshold. Master Jesus faced him when he came out of fasting in the desert, where this fallen being approached him and said, let me give you all the food and all the riches in the world. And he said, man does not live by God and by food and by bread and bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. Get thee behind me. And he passed the test. So what I'm saying is that as you're elevating, you're going to face that frontal attack. It's not going to be your feeling and your emotion being so big and thinking it's my own fault. It's going to be, you know, that there's another entity that's trying to accost you. And you're going to have to respond with wisdom and with neutrality and illumination. The third collective that I want to talk about is what in the Gnostic Bible is called the demiurge. We're talking about Lucifer, who took 1/3 of the heaven down with him when he fell. And he is a usurper to God. And in the Gnostic Bible, he's called also the grand architect of the universe. Any teaching, whether it's Christian, not Kabbalist, Gnostic, or whatever, anytime you see the title, the grand architect in the universe, they're talking about the demiurge. It's not the real God. This being is creating on earth a false kingdom to rival that of God. He gives all the riches of the world. He gives the fame, the fortune, the adoration, the money. He gives everything of the physical world. You have to be very careful with him, because if you go against him openly and try to attack him, he will take from you everything in the physical world that you have. Now, the abundance and the flow that he gives, or the adulation and the recognition that he gives, is false. And a lot of people right now who are having tremendous existential crisis are having it because they put their hope in the demiurge. They were worshiping the demiurge. And because of the way things are being reshaped now, because all secrets will be revealed, all things that were hidden are being revealed. So a lot of people are discovering, for example, if your identity and who you thought you were was connected to the fortune and the money you have, that will be shaken because it's false, it's not real. If your identity was in your profession, that can also go away in a flash. If your identity was in your emotional relationship, that can also be removed. Your identity and your sovereignty has to be so authentic that it can exist anywhere in the universe without an outside thing to prop it. So what I'm saying is that the demiurge is that ideal of the king of the world, or the architect of the world, that created the false kingdom on earth. And the Gnostic are very clear about this. And by the way, that's the secret that they knew. That's why they were killed, or the early church fathers thought they were heretic, and they buried their teachings. They persecuted them. And this is why the Cathars were also killed in the First Crusade in the south of France, in Languedoc. Any questions, any comments? I've said quite a bit.
Yeah, would you say that God has created these three categories, these forces of what we might call adversaries as well, though?
Yes. Okay, there are so many existential important questions laid out in your question, in your comment. When God originally asked, for example, for the Archon, asked Archangel Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael to go in and imprison the Archons, they did. But it was for a limited time. It was about 7,000 years. And of course, after that, the prison door was open. God has the power to annihilate them, but he never did. They serve a purpose. And the purpose is the refinement of our consciousness. They are helping us cleanse and purify who we are. The Archon, on the one hand, because they work on our emotional body, they're teaching us how to really be thoroughly emotionally intelligent. From the subconscious mind all the way, from soup to nut, all the way out back to God. How Satan is testing our faith in God by testing us, by taking away from us And I'm telling you, I know many people that are teachers like me who have been tested like me in some deep and profound way. I was sharing with the class earlier, the other class earlier, that 4 or 5 days ago, the archons came back at me and tried to test me emotionally. And it was this agitation, this fear, and this agitation of like something is wrong, something is wrong, something is not right. I couldn't figure out exactly what I was agitated about. I eventually did. I was picking up a lot of other people's stuff as an empath, and I had to shut down the back door where that was coming from. Again, it's the core analysis. And again, somebody was saying earlier that it's hard work. You have to do all of this analysis all the time and self-examination. Every ascended being is doing it all the time. So if that is you, stop whining. This is what it is to grow and to become ascended. It's not, a free ride. The most important part is that you have to do the self-assessment, constantly monitoring your consciousness to find out where you are. And as you do this, you begin to own the version of yourself that you're trying to project into the world. And whatever else is trying to penetrate you, you can lock them out and say, I banish you, I push you back. And I would say, thirdly, Janice, that Satan and has, of course, has an important purpose, as I said, to test our resolve and our faith and our belief in God, and he's the main resistance. And again, created by God. I don't want you to make no mistake. Satan is not an aberration. Satan was created the moment God realized the birth of shame issue came up with the original receiver. When God realized he could gift the receiver everything that he wanted, but he could not remove his shame. When God came back and to restore the harmony that existed before between the original receiver and giver, he did something else. He exploded the receiver in a gigantic spiritual detonation and manifested a physical universe. And that physical universe is what we have today. And at that same moment, he created the resistance. He at that moment, he manifested Hasatan as well, as a means to make it so difficult for us to give and receive, so that when we finally do it, we will feel deserving of the previous estate where ease and flow was coming instantaneously, but it was coming so easy that we kept feeling undeserving of the gift that we were getting. He is the way in which we can feel deserving. And of course, Lucifer and the idea of him, he is, again, the deceiver. And I had a huge test. I don't want to get into the details right now, but I had a huge and immense test with somebody who was an agent for this being, who came into my life and almost disrupted everything in my life. And I almost lost everything that I had because of this individual. The discovery, because the presentation was completely different, the person and I had a lot in common. There was a whole bunch of things that were, that seemed so ideal and so perfect. But on the other hand, it was after a certain kind of conversation and comments that I began to realize something else is going on. And I made the mistake of taking this person and leaving this person in my retreat center without supervision. It was this is the one part that I regret. It was a huge mistake. And again, it's a lesson in discernment. And whatever may happen because of this, the consequences I'm still dealing with, whatever may happen because of this, I'm going to let it ride. Because again, everything in the physical world is an illusion.
Mm.
It's Maya, and I'm going to let it happen. Whatever happened, happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to completely surrender to that and let God and Spirit guide me. I'm in a different place now.
Good, yes. So if the archons strengthen our emotional intelligence, Hasatan tests our faith in God. What does Lucifer do? Is he the one that commands our,
He is the master of illusion.
but for what purpose would that?
He's there to test, to make sure that the Maya, what in Hinduism they call the Maya and the illusion, the matrix. He's the master of the matrix. It's a false reality that he creates.
Yes.
And you need to awaken in that reality and realize it's false. And you have to make a different choice to disconnect to it.
Okay, well, that's
The tests are so real that you really think that they are real.
and part of that is our own identity, you said.
It's all ego. It's all ego. He inflates your ego. He makes you believe in all this other stuff. He inflates it by telling you by giving you things and making you think you're rich, you're important, you have, I have seen people, for example, in mass media who had all these followers and all these people and they were making millions of dollars, and then one thing happened and the internet goes against them and they get canceled, they lose everything overnight.
Mm-hmm.
You could be making, easily $7-8 million, and then one thing happen, you say something, everybody hates you, you get canceled, and all of a sudden your entire influence is gone, and your income is wiped out.
Mm-hmm. So God created Lucifer as well.
Yes.
Or he rebelled and wanted to develop his own kingdom to rival God's.
Yes.
But
His sin, Lucifer's sin, is pride. He wanted to rival God.
uh-huh. So yes, I see. So then part of that must have been part of God's understanding of what would happen. But then he serves us in a way to look beyond the veil of illusion. And so that helps us in our ascension process.
Correct.
Of course, he also presents the illusion, does he not?
Yes, yes, yes.
So then he challenges. Well, I certainly hope that not all of them come at once, but.
Well, that was the last part. Okay. Sometimes they do. Of late, they usually don't come all at once. But of late, I have noticed sometimes two of them are coming together. This is why I don't want to be influenced by anything. This is why I have to feed my consciousness higher stuff. This is why I am praying all the time. This is why I'm isolating myself, because it's easy to get caught and trapped and awaken after you made several so-called mistakes. I rather isolate myself and live more of a sedentary life than anything else, so that I can begin to I am better apt at monitoring my consciousness and examining who I am, where I am, and what I'm doing when I am more isolated and I'm more by myself. Whereas if I had a lot of distraction because of the Mayas and the illusions and the demiurge work, I will be distracted by that or the other.
And I suppose that's why the monks sit on the mountaintop to remove themselves from the distractions.
Yes. And of course, it's hard to do when you're living in a modern world in a city like New York City, where all kinds of things are happening all the time. But that's exactly the challenge that the modern man is facing. To be of God in an environment like this. and to anchor the light of God in an environment like this and to radiate it out.
And just as Job was tested severely, if we are then tested in this environment that we live in severely, the reward then must be
Yes,
through it.
the reward are equally like extraordinary. I am seeing more and more people, particularly going to the waterfront on a daily basis. I'm seeing a lot of couples who have their suitcases in their hand that are hanging out on there is a reclining bench by which I sit and meditate. I see a lot of couples that are there, and I can tell these are people who are recently, they're homeless.
Mm.
And it pains my heart
It's hard to see.
because, you know, it's easy, like this, it could happen to any of us.
Yeah.
And it's heart-wrenching. I'm looking at them and I'm, you know, they're sleeping somewhere, but during the day they have to vacate. And you see them in the park. That area is very isolated. It's very shaded, and there are very few people who are circulating. It's not the main drag, and it's very safe because there are patrol cars that are constantly going with rangers that are constantly going around, so they can stay there and laid out. And I suppose by end of the day, I'm there for only an hour and a half at the most. But by end of days, I suppose they can return back where they're sleeping. But I see them daily. And you can tell it's because of the front, these principalities are shaking them.
Mhm.
This is why I was so moved by one of them who came to talk to me because I was meditating, that I was moved to give them a blessing. And I created the torsion field around, I took them into source. Because they needed the protection. And by the way, I saw him yesterday. Is it yesterday? Yeah. And he came and talked to me and he said to me, the protection is still, it's past 7 days, the protection is still there. He was thanking me for it and all that. And I said, you're welcome. And I still don't know their name.
Hmm.
And I don't need to know. Their husband and wife. So this is where we are, and this is how things are going. And I can tell you that it's again, when my heart gets pained by what I witnessed like this, I have to realize that whatever karma, and again, this is where the non-attachment comes in. What I needed to do for them was to give them a blessing. But I'm not attached to them because whatever karma they're going through, whatever test they're getting from the principalities, it's not my test. And if I get involved too deeply, it will become my test.
I see.
Remember, we talked about this before, that sometimes we get so emotionally involved. I was talking to a client very recently, and they were like going through this because their family members are going through that and the other. And I focus and I'm like, this is not your karma.
Hmm.
You're taking family karma and you're making it yours. It's your sisters, it's not your karma. You're not supposed to be carried. This is the false concept, Christian concept of the sacrifice. And when you are that detached or that non-attached, you actually become more powerful. The blessings you give, the way you project, because you're letting God do it. You're not your ego, your sense of importance, your sense of self, your sense of control is not involved, and you're letting God do it. You just, like I gave these people this blessing, I don't need to know their detail. Because if I know too much information, my ego, I'm going to try to solve their problem. I don't need to know, because whatever it is that they're going through, that's falling into demiurge territory. I don't need to know. It's the metrics. But what I do know is that I know who I am. I'm a priest of Melchizedek, and I hold the energy of neutrality. And of liberation. And I can share with them the liberation that I know, which is what I did. Any questions and comments?
A lot of people like Amma,
Yes.
that does the hugs for
Yeah.
for masses of people, sharing her serenity, peace, and love, is a service not unlike what you did for the people, the person in that park, but otherwise we would soon burn out if we tried to help everybody that we saw as well. Even compassionate, as compassion would lead us. So I guess my thought is that we cannot separate ourselves totally from the evidence of trials that are going on around us. If they're not ourselves, we see evidence. Even if you don't watch the news and you stay reclusive, when you do go out, they surround you then.
Yeah.
So we cannot be in this world and not of it altogether.
No, totally. And as a matter of fact, I'm not suggesting that you separate yourself from the world. It's just the exact opposite. I'm suggesting that your consciousness remain in alignment with God and broadcast the hope and the serenity, the love and the compassion of God to everyone in your circle of influence, which is what I do in that connect when I go to that park. In other words, it's not that I'm trying to isolate myself from the world. It's just that I'm broadcasting a different frequency, one of neutrality. And I'm very aware when I do the torsion field on the waterfront, how big and how vast the immense the energy is. And I'm going to share with you the two methods that I'm using to broadcast. Okay? Because that's the next part of this. How do you broadcast this energy? How do you release it? Yes, when I do the torsion field and the love and the hope and the serenity that I have extend, but there is something that I do, there are two things I do specifically that can initiate the broadcast, the projection of the peace and the serenity I have. So the first one is that I repeat the following, and I'll show you how to do it next. May the peace, the serenity, the love, and the liberation that I know pass on to you. Now, sometimes I don't feel, aside from love, sometimes I feel kindness, I feel joy, I feel ecstasy, whatever it is that I'm feeling at the moment, I will add it into that list. May the peace, the serenity, the joy, and the liberation that I know pass on to you. And when I say pass on to you, wherever the person is, if they're in front of me, like these two people that I was giving the blessing, when I finish bringing them into source and I'm about to let them go, I actually saw my antakarana when I say pass on to you, project into them, like move from me into them. Now, when you do this, I don't want you to think that you're depleting yourself. If you're doing it from your ego, meaning Pierre is trying to do it to show how much power he has, you're going to be depleted. But if you're doing it like Amachi and Amakurumai, Kunamai are doing, when they're giving you their darshan, their blessing, they are coming from a place of complete non-attachment. And they're letting the goddess that's within them, that they represent, who they embody, give the blessing through them. It's not them doing it. So that's why it's important to know when I say, may the peace, the serenity, and the liberation that I know pass on to you. And I see the energy move from me and go into the person. I've done this for so many people. And immediately when I say pass on to you and I see the energy moving into them, I will hear them, if they were disempowered, go, oh, oh. They start sighing because immediately the problem they were having stopped. I remember being on the phone with somebody that was under psychic attack. My God, I feel this energy. There was this buzz. I feel this energy, blah, blah, blah. This is somebody who was a light worker that I love very much. I said to her, remain silent for 5 minutes. And then I took her into, created a torsion field around her, and then took her into source, dropped her there. And I silently, I didn't even say it aloud. I said silently to myself, into her. May the peace, the serenity, and the liberation that I know pass on to you. And I projected it. Immediately she went, oh my God, everything stopped. Everything just stopped. The result is immediate. Now, that's one method of broadcast. Another method, and I have to be very careful, because this morning when I did this online, I froze the screen for about a few minutes, a few seconds. So I have to be very careful how I do this, because I was actually projecting it out, okay? So the words that you're gonna say, this is a very specific thing. You do this, for example, and I've done this as well in the past, when, for example, and this is the Melchizedek magic. This is white magic that you would do in an instance where you're trying to connect directly into the throne room of God, of the golden temple of Melchizedek. So years ago, I had done an event at a healing center in New York, and like many other healing center, I was renting the space out. I was doing a dinner, actually. I had a caterer coming in later on, and I was setting it up and putting the tables together, etc. I was there with the owner, and I walked in with a dowsing rod to check the energy. Everything was negative, not one positive point, not unusual. In my experience, most healing center, people there or the healers that come there to rent the space out and do event, they are not spiritually hygienic. It's like going to a surgery room that has not been disinfected. Instrument and the whole room has not been disinfected. It's the worst thing you could do in the world. So I realizing this, I said to the owner, could you get me a 8-inch round table? He said, oh yeah, it's in the closet. Let me go get it. He went outside, and while he went out, I did this. What you need to do is that you have to repeat this word, these 3 things. Be gone, time and space. And I'm going to try to do it projecting that way, because when I did it against the screen earlier, I froze the screen. Be gone, time and space. And I project my hand, and as I project my hand, I immediately, when you say be gone, time and space, you're banishing space-time, you're banishing everything of this world, and you're anchoring in the center of the space or the room, while you're holding your hand like this. The golden axis of Melchizedek, or your own Antakarana. Be gone, time and space. And then you extend your hand out and you extend it. And when you extend it, as it extends out this way, you start letting the guardian alliance of light to come in, and you inhale. First breath, torsion field gets created. Second breath, while you're holding your hand always out, holding your hand always out. And you keep breathing, and you do the 12th breath as you follow the guardian or the guidance of the guardian all the way throughout. Okay? While the 12 torsion field gets created. it will disrupt, as it's doing now by fuzzing the screen. Sorry about that. It will come back into focus in a second. Every time I do this, it disrupts the electronics, because the energy is again, it's powerful white magic. Meaning by that, it's an ancient technology that comes from the true Melchizedek order. So use this with care. Any questions or any comments that you may have?
When would you use this, Pierre?
Say that again.
When would you use this?
The second part I would use when I want to create to make sure that an entire environment becomes neutral. Let's say I'm walking into a house, I don't have the time to, like I'm driving my car and in the morning, and I'm trying to figure out to get my car, because I do the torsion field around my car every time I drive it. So I create the torsion field around the car. If I'm not sitting in it, I don't create. Sometimes I'm sitting in the car, I create the torsion field around me and around the vehicle. But there are times that you're walking and somebody is in danger of something, or there's your house, and you sense that something is in there, you need to banish that energy out. You just do this, and you project it, and you create a torsion field all around it. And it creates, it restores, it banishes. And again, it's as you are witnessing the disruption it creates in the video. When I did it this morning, it actually froze the video. I have to be very careful how I use this, because it's powerful stuff. Now, after you create that energy, for example, you could put an intention in it. Love, compassion, mercy. You could put a higher virtue in it. Now imagine for a moment if 12 people were to do this together in a space and begin to broadcast the same frequency. Let's say, for example, mercy for the world, peace on earth. Imagine what would happen. Any questions, any comments?
I think I just want to be sure I'm understanding, to digress for a moment, Pierre.
Yes.
When you say be gone, time and space, projecting your hand outward, and you are banishing space-time and anchoring neutrality into the room, while you're holding your hand projected forward, is when you ask the guardians to create the 12 torsion fields?
After I do this, yes. First, I see it projected from me.
Okay.
Okay, it's projected out into the space. And then once it's done, okay, what's the best way to describe this? What I'm projecting out, it's not just the Antakarana. It's actually, the term is theurgy. And theurgy is ceremonial magic. It's high ceremonial magic where the old magician like Gandalf had a staff in their hand. But instead of the staff, it's energetically being created in the room. In the Kabbalah, if you think of the Sephirot Hakma, you have Kether, Hakma, and Bina. Hakma symbol is a rod of power, or a staff of a magician. Because if Kether is a dot or point, which is zero, like the beginning of something, the rod is a line. And that line and that rod is referred to as the measure of God. I want to explain this the right way. Meaning that when a magician takes his staff, as if, for example, in Gandalf and the bridge of Khazad-dûm, and he said to the bell rock, the demon, "You shall not pass," and he shook his staff. When you strike the staff with a decree, because what you're doing in both instances, whether it is beyond time and space or may the peace and serenity, you're decreeing to the world. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. You're decreeing a command that the whole universe, because you and I are God and goddesses.
Mm.
So when a magician, you shall not pass, what he's doing when he strikes it down, he's creating a circle with the rod. Because if you were in the universe, there is no such thing as a straight line. Because if there was no gravity and no drag, if you were to shoot a bullet or an arrow, okay, the arrow would circle the universe and come and hit you in your back. When you strike with an intention and a word and a decree, you create a circle that becomes the measure of a power of a decree you're trying to create. You create a magical circle in which that will be made manifest.
And then the torsion field is built after that.
After that. So the beyond time and space, it's like, it's so simple, but it comes from a deep and profound high level in the emerald cluster of Melchizedek that it connects you immediately to that power.
And do I remember you said last time, whenever it was, you're talking about this, you do it 3 times?
No, you repeat it only once.
Only.
Gone. I'm not gonna do it because I don't.
It's okay. I got it.
It's gonna distort the video and do all kinds of things.
Yeah. I'm glad to know this. You know, when I just to digress for a moment, when I came back from my travels and I had some important time-sensitive work that I had to get out immediately, I found myself facing technological problems of the surge protector not working, and the light went out, the computer went dead, phone went dead. And I worked as calm as I could because I know this is a test, right? So I kind of knew that I would work my way out of it somehow or other, but I was facing nothing. I could not figure out what the problem was. So I called upon Archangels Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael to banish the Archon energy that would have perhaps been responsible for creating a situation that caused me to react negatively. And after I did that, I realized that it wasn't the failure of my surge protector. When I moved it, I pressed a button that was an on-off switch for some rows. So all I had to do was press that button and everything was restored with no damage to any of the things not ejected properly. But I was grateful to you for that, because otherwise I might have responded emotionally to that. Mm-hmm. And I knew that that would be an open door, back, or otherwise a cool front door, I guess, at that point. So I knew that I had the tools. Now this one with beyond time and space adds another dimension to that, I think.
It is, again, it's theurgy, and it's deep and profound magic, celestial magic. It's the measure of God.
Mm.
without having a rod, because the rod of the magician is a symbol for your own antakarana and the
Oh,
celestial axis. You don't need to have it.
oh, oh, yes. Oh,
This is why it's such an elevated magic. You don't need to have the rod. It's for show. It's so that you can look important.
it's the power that we have that most
Yes,
surprises us
yes.
and maybe scares us.
I'm sorry?
And maybe scares us.
Yes, yes, exactly. Because to own it mean a lot of responsibility. You can't blame people for nothing anymore. You have to, you have to choose to say, okay, if something is happening to me right now that I don't like, I'm creating it.
You have,
How do I uncreate it now?
yes, exactly. And you have to be dainty when you're big.
Yes, yes. I I love that. Yes, absolutely. You have to be absolutely dainty, and you have to be the bigger you are, the less disruption you want to do. It's like the bull in the china shop. You have to be very careful about everything that you do.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And so, by the way, Mercury is going retrograde on August 4th. Be aware of that. So probably this weekend or early part of next week.
And is is there a lot of solar flare
A
activity?
lot, a lot,
Uh-huh.
a lot. There's like three solar flares that are combined together. There was on the other side of the sun. It was either they're saying X13. They actually think it was actually an X30. If it was on our side of the sun, it would have caused massive blackout all around the planet.
Uh-huh. I suspected that because it's been a week I've felt such extreme fatigue, unnatural fatigue.
Yeah,
I think that that's been my reaction to solar flares
yeah,
typically.
yeah. And on the 30th, on Tuesday, there's all of these flares combined or coming toward us. They're going to collide with the magnetosphere, with the Earth. And there's been, and it's not the most active region. The one that released the X13 flare is moving in our view right now.
Oh, I see.
We are very fortunate and very blessed that it didn't happen, because it would have disrupted everything.
We did that ourselves. We
Yeah.
disrupted the global computer system, our good part.
Yes. With this update, this is why I refuse to update my computer. Keep asking me to update to Microsoft 360, and I refuse to do it.
Hmm.
Because I don't want to have 360 things on the cloud. And if something happened, everything's out. Like I knew it.
Oh, good for you.
I knew it. I'm not doing it. If everybody's telling me, well, everything's in the cloud, you're being silly. You're being silly. Blah blah blah. Blah. I'm not. Okay, I'm being silly. But when you woke up that morning and you saw that blue screen where you couldn't access anything, who's being silly now? I opened my computer, everything was on.
So these X13, whatever flares,
Yeah.
will do something similar, you think?
Well, no, we don't know if it's going to release an X13. It was on the other side of the sun. There was a satellite there that recorded it. They were trying to figure out if it was it was between an X7 or an X30.
Mhm.
So I think they settled that it was probably an X13, because most of the satellite are facing or around where the Earth is. But there was one satellite that was on the other side. So it picked it up, right? So and that sunspot is moving toward us. It hasn't aligned with us yet, but it's moving toward us. Now, the other three M-class solar flares that were released were from other sunspots that are facing us at this moment. And they're going to collide with the magnetosphere of the planet on overnight on the 30th.
So the protocol that you taught us is to surrender.
Surrender. Drink lots of water and surrender and don't fight anything.
Yeah.
Ask the sun to do what it's supposed to do in the most grateful and natural way and surrender. And take a nap if you can, because that really, really helps.
That happens whether I want to or not.
Well, yield into it. But, you know, just let the nap go through, because, you know, power naps, 45 minutes, an hour, and then when you wake up, you feel completely renewed. Things are better, because the slight migraine headache, the sense like, you know, buzzing, and you're slightly off center, all of that stuff that solar flare does to me personally it's not fun.
No, and it causes my head to swirl like I'm, I don't know, in some kind of a merry-go-round ride.
Yes, yes, I know exactly what you're saying. Yes, it's what scientists are not acknowledging, that we're actually human beings and we're electrical by nature, although they're worried about, you know, all of the satellite they have in the air. They're worried about because that's one of the things. If an S-class X30 class solar flare is released, it will knock out all the satellite. There would be an electromagnetic pulse, an EMP, and it would knock out all the satellite and cause massive blackout everywhere. There's something they call the Carrington event that the planet is due for, and this is what probably going to initiate the 3 days of darkness. It's that it's supposed to be between an X80 to an X100.
Wow.
And if that happens, it will black out everything. We go back to all electrical equipment will just get knocked out.
Good to know what to do. Thank you.
Yes, 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 yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, let's take a 5-minute break and then we'll do our closing meditation on the back end. Okay? 5 minutes. Take a very deep and slow breath. And as you inhale and exhale deeply and slowly, allow the universal life force that permeates everything to enter into your lungs. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. And let your soul and your awareness drop in the middle of your chest. Please forgive me. I love you, and I let go. Please forgive me. I love you, and I let go. Let your mind and your heart sync with each other. And become aware of any sensations, perceptions, feelings, expansion that your core and your central axis want to share with you. Please forgive me. I love you, and I let go. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. Listen. Listen to your core, as if the more than 50 trillion cells in your body had ears. What kinds of information, insights, breakthroughs, and knowing that your core wants to share with you. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I surrender into you all my burdens, all my fears, all the pain and the suffering of the world, for I'm not capable of resolving, repairing, fixing, or doing anything. For in you, God, exists the ability, the strength, and the power to transform, transmute, and heal everything. Let thy will be done. as I sense the fears and the panic of the world, Lord, grant me the detachment not to empath the fear, the strength and the resiliency to be a good shepherd, the patience to help humanity navigate the storm, speak through me and help them find peace, serenity, and reconciliation. Help me show them neutrality as a way to respond to injustice without zealotry and emotional blindness. For responding to fear with fear creates an equally toxic dynamic replacing fear with wisdom and love, repair and heal the illusion of separation that divides us. Lord, I am not certain that I can accomplish this task, for I am just a man. But in you, Lord, I completely surrender myself and my mission. Guide my path, Lord, and fortify me. That I may do your work and have healed humanity. Amen. May the peace, the serenity, the love, and the liberation that I know pass on to everyone in my circle of influence. Hosanna into the highest. Hosanna into the highest. Hosanna into the highest. Take a very deep and slow breath. And whenever you feel ready, you can open your eyes.
Well, thank you, Pierre. That was exactly perfect. What I've been thinking about, my mission, whatever it is, finding a road, a pathway to that. Your prayer, amen, amen, yes. That also, I got two very important bits of information about my mission.
Mm,
I'm using that rod of power
mm,
to heal myself.
mm,
Ah, so to continue to move to how do I say, release, surrender, and develop and move into the temple of Melchizedek.
wow. It's a very powerful thing I just shared with you. It's a real gift. Okay, that last part about this moving things out of the way. And again, the universe is elegant. It's not complicated. It's two sentences. That's all it takes. And knowing the consciousness with which you can hold it, and it happens. Well, I'm so happy for you, Janice.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I want to thank you all for listening to us tonight. If you're listening to us on Patreon, thank you for your support. On YouTube, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk to you next week. Blessings, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Love you.